Okay, hello everybody. I got caught off guard. So welcome to Mahamudra for the People. I believe this is session 34, um, and yeah, it's a new year, new president, new stuff. Um, and so, before I go any further, we can begin the way we have up until this point, which is with the practice of meditation. So let's, it's nice to see everybody from all over the place. So in this moment, allow yourself to settle yourself. Allow your body to settle into space. And if you can and want to do the breath clearing exercises, you can take your hands with your fingers wrapped around your thumbs, put them on your knees, and as you inhale, open your hands and visualize that you're inhaling perfect purity. And hold it gently, and then as you exhale, bring your fingers down again over your thumbs, and exhale dullness, distraction, anxiety, whatever it is that you don't need right now. Again, inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And each time allow yourself to bring in greater clarity, perhaps Vajra clarity. And as you exhale, exhale dullness, torpor, anxiety, anything that you don't need in this moment. And then allow yourself to settle into meditation based on the instructions that I've been giving over the past couple of weeks. Allow yourself to settle your mind, focusing on any particular anchor that works best for you. So that could consist of awareness of breath, awareness of a physical object in your field of visual reference, awareness of a visualized object, or mind itself. Just silence my phone. And we'll sit like this for about 12 minutes. And slowly bring yourself back to this group. Okay. And welcome. So just as a reminder for everybody, you can feel free to ask any questions by clicking the Ask a Question tab at the bottom of the page, or feel free to ask a question in the text box if that feels good too. So it's nice to see everybody here. And I've been teaching from the Ninth Karmapa's text, pointing at the Dharmakaya. And I'm going to continue where I left off 2 weeks ago. We didn't have a class last week, so yeah. So if anybody has any questions at this point, please feel free to let me know. I was telling one person here that I can't see who is here, so it's a little bit of a strange feeling. It's not very interactive necessarily, which is a little odd. But in any event, this is where we are, and so if there are no questions that are burning immediately, I'm going to move on a little bit. And so I had ended on a section called Holding the Mind on Other Sensory Objects. And so this was basically an instruction where, having had some experience with allowing the mind to settle through the process of practicing shamatha, to then apply awareness to all of the sensory experiences that we have. So touch, taste, sound, our body itself, right? So the temperature in the room where you're in, bringing awareness to all sounds. So the sound of my voice coming through whatever device you're using, the ambient sounds, anything we smell, any scent, etc. And the whole kind of essence of the practice is to focus gently, kind of like hanging a sweater or a jacket on a hook, and allowing your mind to not wander, but just focus gently on them. Or, as it says in the text, focus with the iron hook of your mindfulness. So hopefully your mindfulness is not wooden or made of clay, right? But really, like, hooking that awareness right onto that. And, releasing any kind of need for analysis of whether or not the experience was good or bad, or the thing that you're encountering was pleasurable or unpleasurable or displeasurable. And so this is something that we can do, obviously, on the cushion, right? We have our senses, and even if our senses aren't so good, we can still engage in that way. And then, of course, going through the course of our day, quote unquote, off the cushion, this becomes a way of directly bringing, for example, the practice of eating into Mahamudra practice, the practice of drinking, the practice of walking and moving through space, wind, sound, the awareness of whatever kind of ground you're walking on, whether it be concrete or sand or slush or snow or tall grass, short grass. Really appreciating the interactive quality of our life. I don't know about everyone here, but I can get quite busy, and while in my busyness, right, I do try as best I can to kind of remain aware of what's going on outwardly and inwardly. Um, but as we move in our hustle and bustle, it's very easy to kind of shift our focus and our attention away from the wideness of everything that we're experiencing, um, to just kind of the laser like, oh, this is what I need to do, as if I'm being pulled by a string, right? So it can be incredibly refreshing, and maybe even sometimes for some people very jarring to stop and to really just appreciate or notice for the first time, or as if it's the first time, the nature of what's going on around us. And then, of course, the other side of that is the impact that our environment has on us in the moment. Right? So, last weekend we were upstate. I was upstate with my family, with some friends, and it was dead silent. We were staying in a kind of nice little remote spot in the woods. And then when we got back to the city, I just kind of that frenetic, like, just the amount of sound, the amount of busyness, the amount of people, to recognize that and rest into it is quite intense. But then there's also, our physiological, our body reaction to all of that too, and recognizing that as well. And so this this little instruction is quite brief in the kind of span of what is Ninth Karmap's shortest text on Mahamudra. And yet when we begin to kind of look at it and really explore what applying it feels like, it's quite a radical practice. Tasting, chewing, putting something in our mouth, tasting, chewing, seeing how that changes. I was discussing with somebody last night, how, for example, if there's anybody here who enjoys wine, nice wines, if some of them, you can open them and then they really need to kind of breathe a little bit for them to open up. Right, and over the course of an evening, the whole tone of some kinds of wine open up, right? With the difference between a cold cherry tomato right out of the refrigerator and one that's come to room temperature. The experience is totally different, And while, we may, the pragmatist in the audience might say, well, man, that's, a lot of nice stuff, but I'm busy all the time. It's true, and yet it's quite extraordinary how little time we're actually truly present with what's going on, what we're experiencing, etc. So, in continuation of last week, the next section is called Eliminating Dullness and Wildness. And I suspect this one we should have done last month, given what's been going on in the United States. And so, this is a very helpful instruction around what we can do to counter or to modulate our experience when we encounter dullness or wildness. And so dullness meaning a experience of sleepiness, torpor, and then wildness, like thoughts racing, sense of agitation, and things like that. And so the Karmapa reminds us that if dullness or wildness occurs while holding the mind as we've been doing previously, in order to dispel that, we can visualize at our heart center either one of our teachers or our yidam, right? And it doesn't necessarily even have to be a teacher that we've had in our lives. It could be Saraha, the Indian Mahasiddha, is one of the kind of four parents of the Mahamudra tradition. Shavaripa, Maitrepa, or Varupa, could be Karmapa, could be our own individual teachers, or similarly, it could be a yidam, right? A meditational deity. It could be Tara, Chenrezi, it could be Vajravarahi, Hivajra, Chakasambhara. Right? And so this element of, holding the guru or the deity in our heart center, it's kind of this way of bringing stability, bringing a little bit of inspiration. And the visualization can be ornate if we want, that like Guru Rinpoche or Padmasambhava is sitting in our heart on a lotus blossom with all of his attributes, holding a vajra, holding a kapala with a nectar vase, katvanga in the crook of his arm, crown with a vulture feather. Could be whatever it is. And it's really preference-based, right? So don't feel like, again, like the other, instructions, it's not that we have to go through each individual one, like, the using breath as an anchor, using a physical object as an anchor, using a visualized object as an anchor, using mind itself as an anchor, but rather, we don't have to go progressively. We don't need to train in that particular way. We can just use what feels appropriate. And similarly, we can do the same thing here. The other thing you can do is hold your mind in the sphere of light. So it could be, like a sphere of light directly in front of us or on the crown of our head that represents the guru or the yidam. And that sense of closeness, that sense of uninterrupted presence is partially the point of this. And it has a tendency of just kind of chilling us out, bringing us to the moment. So Karmapa goes on to say that if dullness or sunkenness arise, to visualize a white dot about the size of a pea in the middle of an 8-petaled lotus, right at your heart center. And to think that it goes from your heart out through the top of your head, remaining vividly in space directly above. And so that's if like we're feeling intensely dull or get this kind of sinking feeling. Right, so that this tigle, this drop, this little white bindu moves up, arch central channel, to space above. And that kind of almost has this effect of pulling us by a string, elongating our spine perhaps even. And then you can think that it goes down from the heart. It goes from the heart out to the top of the head, remaining there. It also, and these are really the kind of practical instructions, right? He says to avoid warm clothing and sources of heat, such as the sun or fire. and to not eat heavy foods, to splash water on your face if you're very dull and tired, um, and to practice where there's a cool breeze, or to look at or sit on the top of the mountain. This is hard in Brooklyn. But the point of this is to really kind of not be afraid to do what one needs to do to situationally change up what needs to be changed up in order for practice to be easy. And when I say easy, I don't mean like oh, that was easy, but rather that we can practice with ease. And another very helpful kind of secondary point to this is not feeling that we need to kind of power through our pain and our discomfort. To be easy with ourselves, to be generous with ourselves, to practice in a loving way. And so occasionally, like I do come across people who have really bought into a view that's rooted very heavily in there needing to be like an extreme work ethic when it comes to practice. And I need to just sit through everything unpleasant, everything horrible, everything, even though maybe it's driving us a little loony. And so, this is Karmapa's way of just like, saying, this is about coming back to gentle spaciousness, right? We don't have to be barbarians, or, we don't have to judge ourselves, right? So that we're practicing better. So similarly, for wild and scattered thoughts, he suggests visualizing a black dot in the middle of an upside down black lotus in the heart center. Okay. Imagining that it falls out through your genitals like a spider whose thread has been cut. So, and it just drops. Right? Thinking that it dissolves into the golden ground below your seat. And that your clothing, activities, and so forth should be the reverse of above. Right? So you should keep warm if you're cold. You should, when things are wild and scattered, you want to be able to bring things down. Right? When the experience is downward in a way that's distracting, then you need to be able to bring things up. And then he goes on to say that when the mind is still fresh, and there's an experience of stillness, without dullness or wildness, to direct your gaze and mind either at whatever is suitable straight ahead, or at a small blue dot or an object at the edge of the sun's shadow. That with respect to these, you should first decide what to contemplate. So, out of all the different possible things, just, decide mentally. And develop a strong intention to engage in the practice of meditation. And to let your mind settle on whatever you use and rest naturally without wandering. And again, he says to conclude your session while clarity is still fresh. Right? To do short, frequent sessions. So I was reading a different meditation text. This was one for my personal practice. And it was from a different teacher than the one I connect with for this practice I was doing. And they said to do short meditation sessions, And there was a question, well, how long should the session be? And the answer was, as long as it takes for you to go to the bathroom. So, you know, however long that is. But so the point is, this idea of sitting for 2 hours straight, or even 1 hour straight, it's good, right? Not criticizing it at all. But as we're training, right, these short sessions allow us to gain confidence in the practice. And then this other point is that, the fundamental purity of mind is something that's available to us at all time. And that really the practice of Mahamudra is touching right back into that. And so it's not the case that we need to, each time we settle into meditation, we need to calm the whole thing. And it's not that we need to do the intense work at the beginning of each meditation session to get us to this experience of meditation. And when we're there, we need to just settle into that, and then that's just what we're doing. Rather, it's helpful to recognize that the mind is inherently pure, right? And that purity reflects and is a reflection of our Buddha nature. And in that way, really anytime we come down into practice, we're either touching that or getting close to that. So if we do it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and then stop. And then come back and do it again. Stop. And then come back and do it again. It's really about just kind of touching, touching, touching. So hopefully that makes sense. So short, frequent sessions. If we can be kind, and let's not get wrapped up in this kind of capitalist, if I put X amount of time into my practice, that means realization will happen, in Y hours. It's not like that. So the next instruction that Karmapa gives is holding the mind on no support. And so this, I really like this one. It's maybe interesting to some folks, and it does actually tie in with some Bardo, or death and dying teaching I gave last month, which I'm happy to do, again for Bhumi Sparsha if people are interested. But so in this instruction, holding the mind on no support, Karmapa says that in stages, we should dissolve the element of earth into water. And we kind of just do this aspirationally, I guess you could say. And then water into fire. And then fire into wind. And then wind into space. And as we do that, we think that from there, when wind dissolves into space, we experience a great emptiness. And as we do that, we look with an unfocused gaze at the clear, empty expanse of space before us, and direct our mind there. So again, dissolving the elements. The earth into water, water into fire, fire into air into space, and space into emptiness. And then rest and spaciousness, spacious emptiness. And then he goes on to say, not thinking at all as to whether or not there's anything there that exists or not. That we shouldn't do that. and to be at ease and relax loosely, right? Not tight, not like a laser beam, to rest, just watching without wandering. Watching without wandering. Easy and relaxed. He continues saying, don't wander even for an instant. Be as if you were threading a needle. Be without turbulence, like an ocean without waves. Without effort, be like a Garuda flying through the sky. Free from hope and fear, rest like a lion dwelling in the snow. With no wandering, discursive thoughts will not come. And then he goes on to say that while there is the experience of wandering, so when we let our mind wander, and then we're like, it's Friday, the elements all dissolved into one another, and I'm like, oh man, Friday afternoon. Oh, what am I going to cook for dinner? I wonder if the kids need a bath. You know, when we're wandering that way. And he says, discursive thoughts come. Well, of course the kids need a bath. They're filthy. Oh, I don't know. We're tired. Maybe we should order food. You know, whatever. And it just keeps going. As soon as they occur, he says, to recognize them. Right? So the intention is to sit and go deep into practice. When discursive thought arises, you just recognize it. Non-virtuous thoughts such as passion, aggression, bewilderment, and so on. Virtuous thoughts such as generosity, and neutral thoughts. Whatever kind of discursive thought arises, recognize it without making any judgmental reference points of accepting or rejecting, liking or disliking. So don't get hung up on what's coming up. Just let it be. Recognize and let it be. Don't hold on. Don't punish yourself for thinking things that other people might find disturbing. To rest in whatever is happening without wandering, and look at it with the eye of prajna, the eye of wisdom. That thought is used as a support for holding the mind. So whatever is happening, let that thought be the anchor for your mind. Let it be that which you allow your awareness or mindful recognition to just gently hang on. Be free from the faults of being too tight, or too loose. Rest directly without falling on either side of those. So how is that sounding? Does anybody have any questions? Because I can't see anybody's face, I have no idea what is going on. I generally have no idea what is going on. Okay. Well, Karmapa is being very clear. I'm very lucky he wrote so well. Okay. Great. Good, good. So then there's a little footnote that, Karmapa wrote that says, if that does not hold your mind, there are two other methods. So the first is holding your awareness based on breath. And the second is holding it based on counting. And again, so, I think what it's helpful, it's helpful for all of them to be delineated, right? Kind of like a handbook. That being said, if we find things that are working, right, straight off the bat, then, it's good to be aware of this stuff, but you don't need to worry so much about, applying these. There's a question. Oh, yes. So Veronica asks, what text am I referencing? So it's the ninth Karmapa's Mahamudra text called Pointing at the Dharmakaya. He wrote 3 texts. Pointing out the Dharmakaya is the shortest one, and then there's Eliminating the Darkness of Ignorance is the middling one, and then the Ocean of Definitive Meaning is the Nyadam Gyatso is the longest one. So this is the short one. But, amazingly, as these great teachers can do, it's very difficult actually to kind of parse out the differences between these 3 texts because they're so well written. So hopefully that helps. And by all means, please feel free to ask questions however they come. So we'll move on now to holding the mind based on breath. Okay. So the first is to do the 9 exhalations of the stale breath, like we'd done in the beginning, right? So again, if you put your hands over your thumbs and you put those on your knees, you inhale, inhaling, could be white light, rainbow light, whatever you like, but allow that to be something that brings energy, sense of freshness, sense of immediacy, sense of purification, sense of, relinquishing any difficult experience from, what we're going through right now. And as we exhale, like imagine that like extruding through all of our pores is just all the junk, right? All of our sluggishness, our reactivity, our discursiveness, right? And it's just, is extruded out like, some kind of pasta, just like moving outwards. And so you do that 9 times, the inhalation, the exhalation 9 times. And if you do it with the fingers, as you inhale, you're opening your hands, right, but they're down by your knees, and as you exhale and then slowly cover your thumbs. And so after this, so you do this 9 times, right? And so after this, so you inhale and swallow a little bit of saliva, and imagine that you're kind of pressing it down below your navel and holding that for as long as you can, as long as it's comfortable. And then when it's time to let it go, you expel the breath and you let the lower breath rest naturally for a while. Right? And so really, you inhale, swallow a little bit. Imagine that you're pushing that down and you just kind of clench your buttocks a little bit. But just gently, not too hard. And then when you exhale, you just exhale gently. So inhale. And when you hold the wind down, so you're kind of inhaling, swallowing a little saliva, and you hold it like a little pot, right in your belly. You can kind of extend your belly a bit. This is not the kind of thing for people who are very concerned about their form. You want to have a big Mahasiddha belly, like Rupa, or like me. And, so you hold it down and then you clench, you kind of slightly constrict, kind of like doing a Kegel, right? Constricting, your anus a little bit. Right, so it's kind of top and bottom are holding it. You hold for as long as comfortable. It's really important with this particular practice not to force anything. And when you're ready to release, just release. Right, so again, you inhale, holding everything down and pulling slightly up from below. And then exhale. And so he says that with respect to exhaling, again, he says when it's time to let go, as you expel your breath, let the lower breath rest naturally for a while. When you become well accomplished in that, pull the lower breath up a bit higher. Right? So this kind of so it's kind of as if like the muscles, right, are holding the breath down and pushing it up a little bit from below. The most important thing, though, is that this whole thing be very relaxed. Don't strain yourself. So this is a form of vase breathing. And then Karmapa goes on to say that you can also take some short, quick breaths and direct your mind to the clear, empty interior of your body, 4 fingers below your navel from time to time. Look straight ahead at the level of your eyes and relax. But he warns, and this is true, that it's not timely to do this practice after you've eaten. Right? When you're either very full or when you're very hungry. And to do as much as you can at dawn. Right, so again, like the previous instruction of allowing the elements to dissolve and just resting in the experience of space, quite a profound way of resting. If we become discursive and we can't subsequently rest our mind on whatever thought is coming up, Friday afternoon, resting on Friday afternoon. Right? To then do this, right? Do 9 inhalations and exhalations. And then to do a little vase breathing. Right? And not much, right? It's important not to overdo it. Just do it gently. So you could vomit pain if you're too full. And so Kunga Samdam writes, imagine similar feeling to do Hatha Yoga on a full stomach. Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, this is a form of Hatha Yoga, but absolutely. So that's, one of these two methods if those other techniques don't work, which is the first one holding, you know, attention based on breath, and then this next one is based on counting. He says if you're not able to count your mind, control your mind as above, you can hold it on counting. So, and then he says, considering the three phases of breathing, inhaling, resting inside, and exhaling as one, you count mentally from 1 to 21. So, just regular breathing, right? Inhale, hold, exhale, 1. Inhale, hold, exhale, 2. Inhale, hold, exhale, 3. So, you can do that up to the count of 21, and then he goes so far as to say you could do it to the count of 100 or 1,000. So I'm going to suggest that Payne do this counting to 1,000. Or the like, so 10,000. So, perhaps, 21. I've met people who, will inhale, hold, exhale, 1, and then inhale, hold, exhale, 1. So it's basically, the thing is not the number of breaths, right? It's the process of just being aware, being mindful. Okay, so let's see. The other question. Okay, so Payne writes, are the little clench and the swallow generally simultaneous, or does one precede? So the way I usually do, I kind of, do this, and there is a visualized quality to this. So as the air is coming in through the nostrils, as it's going in, that's when I swallow, so that it's almost as if the air gets right, the air and the saliva kind of meet, and the air though is kind of what this. Hold on. Yeah, so the air goes up, and then the saliva kind of acts as a cap to bring it down, if that makes sense. That's what works for me, though. So let me know if that is not unclear. And the little clench you can do at the same time as you're beginning to inhale. So of course, funny thing is I was taught this kind of breathing by Bokor Rinpoche, and he was telling me that you can hold your breath for a couple minutes, and then he said even as long as half an hour. And I was it was kind of curious. Yeah, and so the little clench is similar to a mula bandha. Yes, yeah. And then Payne writes, feels like pressing down after the balloon is full. Yeah, right as it gets a little full, it goes down, and then from above, that clenching, pulling up, just holding it. So it's actually called vase breathing because it's as if So there is a, I don't know if I can do a screenshot or share, but anyway, like a Tibetan vase, like a bumpa, like the body is, the neck is thin, right? There's kind of like a flared out part at the neck, and then right at the mouth, and then the neck is thin and then rounds out, right? So it's kind of predicated your belly needs to get big. So if you have a fear of a big belly, this practice will be challenging. But so with counting, of course, like I was saying before, inhale, hold, exhale. Inhale, hold, exhale. And then Karmapa goes on to say that experience will come through one of the above contemplative points that produce stillness of mind. Depending on what type of person you are, sudden, gradual, or back and forth, the arising of stillness of mind may come with difficulty or easily, but as long as you continue to practice and do not become discouraged, it is impossible for it to not arise. So please keep that in mind. And I've said this before to a couple people, the mind moves, once we're practicing, the mind moves towards awakening. If we can completely obliterate the stains from living with like an original sin kind of, curse, right? Do it. Because really what he is saying is that it will come no matter what. If you're the instantaneous type, it comes fast. If you're the progressive type, it comes progressively. If it goes back and forth, it goes back and forth, right? But it comes, right? It comes. So if we can allow ourselves to rest in the fact that it comes, and we need not worry. We need not beat ourselves up. We need not in like, plain terms, we need not think that we suck, I had a friend a number of years ago who I introduced to Book Rinpoche, and forgive me if I'm, repeating the story. I've told it to a number of people, but, she wanted to meet with Book Rinpoche, and I helped set up, an interview. She had been studying with a couple of Geluk teachers, and we decided to meet for lunch after she met with Rinpoche, and she showed up to lunch like crying, sobbing, and when I asked her what had happened, because I was actually afraid that I had done something to make her unhappy. She said that the meeting was incredibly beautiful because Boku Rinpoche said that you can achieve liberation in this lifetime, whereas what she had been taught by her other teachers was that, it's better to get that kind of out of your mind. Because it'll take, several lifetimes at best, but probably many, And so what Karmapa is saying, and, we don't necessarily need to be worried about like, oh man, when am I going to get enlightened? Am I going to get enlightened before I get a raise, or am I going to get a raise first and then enlightened? We don't need to worry about that, but it helps to have confidence that the practice is powerful and that we will experience awakening. And we will, and we will. So again, he says, but as long as you continue to practice and do not become discouraged, it is impossible for it to not arise. Once you have been instructed by an experienced teacher, the stillness of mind arises in 3 stages. So at first, it is like water falling down a steep mountain. Second, it is like a slowly flowing river. And then finally, it is like the non-moving water of the great ocean. First, thoughts may appear to be coarser than before, but that is because earlier they were not perceived. Before, you hadn't noticed how busy mind was. Now, because you're meditating, they're noticed, they're perceived. Continue to practice without getting irritated. In the end, not disturbed by any discursive thought, stillness will arise of its own accord. If those 3 stages of stillness do not arise, you should increase your exertion, and by alternately practicing tightening and loosening and reverse meditation, stillness will arise. He goes on to say that by tightening one's entire body, mind, and consciousness, and gaze are drawn in, as when crossing a narrow bridge, without any reference point, keep meditating on this or that. Perk up your mind and draw it tight. So you're pulling everything in, right? As a way of focusing, as a way of drawing in all the experience. As for loosening, when doing yogic exercises, gazes, and so forth, remain loose, right? Let the mind itself remain loose and relaxed in its own way, without fabricating or clinging to anything. Rest at ease. Right? Rest at ease at whatever arises, not making an effort, like a baby that is full. Rest at ease. When you're totally sated, when you're doing the practice of drinking wine and eating cheese, and then laying back on the grass on a nice, warm, sunny day, and just relaxing, and just being at ease. Through simply not wandering, have a light touch on mindfulness. Other than that, there's nothing to contemplate. Make your session a little longer, when we're practicing loosely. And then, as for reverse meditation, whatever thoughts may arise, recognize them and regard them as friends. Let go of all accepting and rejecting, hope and fear, and recognize them. The more thoughts there are, the greater the recognition. As long as they continue to occur, let them occur. Do not follow after any of them, just recognizing them. Do not accept or reject them in any way. Even if sickness, suffering, or kleshas rise strongly, just regard them in that way, and they will be pacified in their own accord. And so Travis asks, related question, wondering about discursiveness throughout the day, wondering how close to watch to keep, how diligently to relate to them and intervene. It seems like it's not a too tight or too loose approach. Is that right? Any further guidance? Is there room to just let thoughts roll sometimes? And that's what this last bit is about. I'm concerned about being too tight, but also concerned about being too loose. So this is what this reverse instruction is about, is just letting them come and just recognizing them. Bing, bing, bing. So moving throughout the day, right? Showing up for a meeting somewhere, right? So you show up for your meeting and you're prepared, but maybe you find yourself anxious, right? So you experience the anxiety, recognize it, let go. Next thing. There's somebody who tends to talk too much, like I do, right? So you hear that, and you're like, oh my God, man, this person won't stop talking. Recognize, notice, move on. Hungry, recognize, notice, move on. Irritated, recognize, notice, move on. Blow up anger, recognize the blow up of anger, and let go. So it's helpful to not make a big deal out of everything. It's just to relax, right? To keep it relaxed. When we're practicing on the cushion, remain relaxed. When we're moving through our day, remain relaxed. We don't need to walk around as if we're meditating. We just need to walk around and rest in awareness. Watching a movie is watching a movie and simultaneously experiencing what's arising, recognizing, releasing. And with releasing, we're not like doing anything, right? We're not, patting it on the back and sending it off. We're just letting it go. So in the beginning, of course, when we're not used to this, it might feel a little bit like, breathe, inhale, hold, exhale, right? So recognize, experience, release with respect to thoughts, right? In the beginning, it could feel a little formulaic like that, but eventually it just becomes just like glance, bomb, glance, glance, glance. Everything becomes self-liberated. The thing that is guaranteed to ensure that these things keep coming and stay is when we're like, oh my God, that thought is there. Oh my God, I'm reacting. Oh my God. You know what I mean? I'm trying to make it a little light because that helps. But, to not make a big deal. It's like living in New York City. Whatever. Like, bada bing, bada ba. Like, just, whatever. It's okay. Just let it come, let it go. Let it come, let it go. Let it come, let it go. We've seen it all, right? When we really have our eyes open to what we experience in mind, we have seen and done it all. So allowing ourselves to just be like, I'm not a neophyte, right? Who's like, oh, I'm learning what thought is. We have daydreamed the best of things and the worst of things, right? We've experienced thought activity of the best of things and worst of things. And that, question isn't necessarily, oh, when will that stop? The question is when everything arises, am I conscious or not? Or am I just kind of going through the day completely unconscious, unable to really notice anything, and just constantly reactive. So there's just one last little bit towards the end of this instruction on shamatha, and then we'll be done for this week, and then we'll be able to move on to vipassana next week. So in closing, Karmapa says that then, as for the way that shamatha develops and the recognition of it, due to the power of holding your mind, the mind is a little still or very still, and that is shamatha. Allowing the vacant state in which the conditions that would give rise to thoughts are not encountered should not be called shamatha. So I'm going to repeat this. Due to the power of holding your mind, right? Due to the process, we could say, of maintaining awareness of mind. The mind, we experience the mind as a little still or very still. Right? So in the beginning, we experience the thought activity. The more we remain, in this training of shamatha, the more we begin to experience thought activity naturally slowing down a little bit. Right? We don't force it. We just let it, come back to it, come back to it, come back to it. Come back to it several times during session. Over the course of several sessions, things slowly, slowly, slowly settle themselves. That being said, shamatha is not the establishment of a vacant state in which the conditions of that vacant state give rise to no thoughts. We're not forcing anything. Got to be light. This light patience, this light allowing things to just work themselves out. This kind of gets back to Karmapa's point. It will happen. If you engage in the practice, this will happen. Have to have faith in that. But we can't rush it by just being like, no, you're not happening. Thoughts, man, screw you. Like, that's not going to work. And that's not shamatha anyway. That's totally missing the point. So shamatha is the mind in which the complexities of klesha, discursive thought, fixating on characteristics, and wandering have been completely pacified. That's what shamatha is. And as the essence of virtue, it abides free of dullness and wildness, clear and one-pointed. Previously, shamatha was produced through effort, but now, over time, it's not dependent on effort. It's easily sustained, relaxed, and carefree. He goes on to say, when one arises from meditation, mind does not wander anywhere. It just stays there. Throughout all four activities, awareness is at ease and dignified, and appearances are not flashy. If one does not point one's mind towards objects, one will not notice their details. It may seem as if forgetfulness is increasing. One may have some sort of experience of bliss, luminosity, or non-thought. Any of the many experiences, higher perceptions, miracles, as well as the 10 signs and so forth may arise. Accordingly, when these are born in one's being, they are the ground that gives rise to all good qualities, including vipassana and so on. At this time, any sort of disease, pain, and suffering, and false accusations may arise, as well as good and bad dreams, higher perceptions, miracles, and experiences of bliss, luminosity, and non-thought may occur. In any case, abandoning attraction and aversion without attachment, if one meditates with the paddle of exertion, the good qualities will be beyond conception. Camille has a question. I'm just going to finish this one last little paragraph and then get to that. So then Karmapa says, meditating in that way is shamatha, free from the faults of absorption and scatteredness. When such an authentic shamatha has arisen in your being wholeheartedly, make it your main practice. This is the recognition of just shamatha. Right? So allowing ourselves through the practice to come back and to come back and to come back. And eventually, over time, everything becomes less overwhelming. There's less gravity, right? With our kleshas, with thought activity, with appearances. We're not like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's just, we're like, it's all pretty okay. And then we begin to understand, have faith and confidence in the experience of mind itself. So, and so I'm going to just quickly answer Payne's question first because it's kind of clear. These are various are these various experiences referred to what's called nyam in Tibetan? Trying to contextualize for myself. Yes, yeah. And so Camille asks, I have a question about the instruction with the elements, melting earth into water, etc. Do we do that as a sort of a visualization? So it's definitely not late for that question. So you can, yes, you could do it as a visualization. You can visualize earth dissolving into water, and the element of water dissolving into fire, fire dissolving into wind, and wind dissolving into space. And then this, I mean, this is my favorite kind of way of doing this. And then everything becomes the experience of space. And so then in the instruction, it says to look with unfocused gaze at the clear, empty expanse of space before you and to direct your mind there. So Ani's, Ani Sangmo, this was kind of one of her instructions that we did quite a lot. And that unfocused gaze on space itself remains an incredibly powerful technique for just resting directly into the experience of mind. So again, what we're not doing, although more power to you if you can, is to transform the entire experience of element of earth into water, water into fire, fire into air, air into space, space into empty spaciousness. We're not literally necessarily transforming those elements in this particular moment. Right? It could be visualized, so you can visualize the elements doing that, or you can just appreciate the process. But the whole thing is just this gradual release, right, from form, earth, into water, water into fire, right? So they're becoming increasingly kind of, airy, spacey, fire into air, air into space, resting in space. And that process of allowing yourself to rest a non-focused gaze on spaciousness is a little bit like that instruction that I've given some folks on merging the experience of mind with space. If you can do this, depending on where you live, go outside to a place where there's a vast horizon, be it the desert, the mountains, the ocean, the top of a mountain or the top of a building. Just kind of look out on a bridge and rest the mind freely and naturally into space. Quite a profound technique. So hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if it's not. Okay. All right. So we're at the time, and at the end of this. Yes, yeah. Merging the mind with space is a good thing. So my advice is to, the good thing about Crowdcast, they tell me, even though I can't see anybody, so I feel like I'm putting on a weird show, is that, the moment this is over, I believe it's accessible to watch again. So, and I can't remember the number of, what session number it was when I started teaching this, but you can go back and watch the kind of earlier sessions on shamatha. My advice is over the course of the next week to kind of touch into which technique feels the best for you, um, and um, and then to practice in that, right? And I really can't stress enough Ninth Karmapa's instructions for short sessions. I'm not actually 100% sure where these long sessions came from, but practice in short sessions, practice gently, practice in a way that's loving, practice in a way that kind of allows you to escape from some need to like practice like you have a jackhammer. It's not about being a hero, a Powell or a Palmo, right? It's about just being at ease, being relaxed. I think this is one of the most important threads throughout this entire, instruction on shamatha is to be relaxed, to be at ease. And so I invite everybody to do that for the next week. And then when we come back together again next Friday, if anybody has questions, we can do that. Or if anybody who's studying with me privately wants to do that, bring the questions then. But yeah, allow yourself to just get free and loose, and take good care. So in this moment, I dedicate any merit from this teaching session towards the liberation of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings, high and low, seen and unseen, be able to experience the mind as it is, free, easy, open, vast, expansive, the mind of Mahamudra. May all of you experience great certainty through this practice, and may that certainty guide you along the path as you continue to progress towards Buddhahood. Thank you all. May you be blessed and be well.